Hello, we will begin the event shortly. Before we begin, please kindly turn off your mobile phones or have them in silent mode. Thank you.
Hello, and welcome to the 2022 INEB Public Symposium. My name is Dexter Bone from INEB, and I will be one of your co-hosts today.
My name is Jihyun Kim from Jongto Society, and I will be also one of the co-hosts of this event.
We will open today's symposium with a beautiful performance of traditional Thai music performed by Kevin Asawongrat Asarongchai, Cultural Ambassador from Thailand.
Sawadee krab. My name is Asawongrat Asarangchai. I am 12 years old and I am from Thailand. I am the Asian Cultural Ambassador 2022. And today I am so proud to perform you the song เสียงคุยเรียกนาง with my Thai flute. Please enjoy.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Please give him a big round of applause again. Very proud, very proud. Next, we will watch the video titled World at Risk.
With clear minds and open hearts, Kalyana Mitta gather, seeking a fresh start.
Addressing a world of fear and perpetual dissatisfaction, we have come together for mindful action.
Many of our communities are torn, conflicted, and in pain. Fogs of war and revolution, bringing tears like rain.
Bombs are daily dropped with arrogant conviction, ordered by blind leaders acting on deluded affliction.
Extreme politics continue to incite bigotry and hate, marginalizing our brothers and sisters in cruel debate.
If harmony is our goal, then let us carefully reflect how to plant seeds of peace in every nationalist sect.
From the perspective of practice, we must look within. Seeing the suffering is where to begin.
Our mind streams are often trapped in social media frenzy, agitating awareness with passion, deception, and envy.
These manipulated realities challenge trust and stable spread. Are we sure that the truth didn't die a digital death?
Globally rocked by a virus too small to perceive, locked up inside, our world began to grieve.
The unknown embraced us with intensity and power. Grasping in fear, we watched case counts by the hour.
As isolation spread, anxiety filled empty streets. Hearts ached for each other over years of forced retreat.
While governments chanted impermanence, life stood still. With courage and compassion, kind beings cared for the ill.
Enforced masks and vaccinations ensured safety and respect. But who did these civil restrictions really protect?
Grounded fleets and travel bans cleared the clogged skies. Remember my beauty, the earth clearly advised.
Our climate visibly changed during that brief global pause, only to be chewed again by profit's uncaring jaws.
From Earth's great forests to wide open seas, our precious biosphere is being brought to its knees.
Crazed mass extraction of nature's fossil reserves degrades our planet. Is this what she deserves?
While every cop promises to plant sustainable seeds, greenwashed cop-outs thinly veil corporate greed.
Our house is on fire and continues to burn. How many more species must we mourn?
Conditioned as we are by self-centered striving, wise minds focus where compassion is arising.
In the silence of grief and space between thought, a vow of resilience is whispered and mindfully caught.
In humble service we have gathered from many distant lands to strengthen trust in a future built with head, heart, and hands.
Though our world is at risk and stakes higher than ever, through reflective action, we boldly commit to this noble endeavor.
Thank you. Now I would like to invite Venerable Panyum Sunim, the founder and guiding Dharma teacher of the Jungto Society, to the stage for a welcoming remark. Thank you, Venerable.
오늘 이 자리에 참여해 주신 여러분 모두를 환영합니다. So welcome to all the participants in today's event.
저희들은 지난 5일 동안 문경 연수원에서 환경 문제, 그리고 평화 문제, 그리고 팬데믹 이 세 가지에 대해서 논의를 했습니다.
For the last 5 days at Mungyong Training Center, we discussed issues related to peace, environment, and pandemic.
저희들이 해결책은 못 찾아냈다 하더라도 대화를 통해서 우선 그 위기를 공유하고 그리고 함께 해결해 나가기로 약속을 했습니다.
We did not arrive at a definitive solution. However, through engagement, further discussion, we promised to each other that we will further our outcomes together.
오늘 그 얘기를 여러분과 한국에 계시는 여러분과 함께 나누고 싶습니다.
And that's the story we shall share with you all here today.
이번 INEB 세계 대회에 특별히 창설자이시고 나이가 90대신 아잔 솔락 박사님께서 참여해 주셔서 이 대회를 더욱 빛내 주었습니다.
And this conference this year was especially honored by the presence of Arjan Shulak, the founder of INEB, who has reached his 90th birthday during the conference.
특히 그 생일 잔치를 한국에서 할 수 있어서 정말 기쁩니다.
And I'm very pleased to be able to host his birthday in Korea this year.
그리고 차오웨이 이사님 그리고 INEB 이장 하르샤 등 비구니 오바세 오바이 이 INEB 참가자 여러분께 다시 한번 환영의 말씀을 드립니다.
And along with Venerable Chao Weis and Harsha and all the other participants, welcome once again.
그리고 오늘 이 자리에는 한국 종교인 지도자들도 참여해 주셨습니다.
We also have Korean religious leaders here today.
오늘 성공회 박종여 주교님 그리고 원불교 김대성 교무님 그리고 개신교 박종화 목사님께 감사드립니다.
I'd like to thank Reverend Park Jong-hwa, Kim Dae-hyun, as well as An Jae-young here today for making this place shine brighter with their presence.
그리고 오늘 패널로 발표해 주시는 우리 안재웅 목사님께 감사드립니다.
I'd also like to thank Reverend An Jae-young, who will be acting as a panelist today.
그리고 정부에서는 우리 김대현 정무실장님께서 이 자리를 빛내주기 위해서 축사하러 오셨습니다.
And we also have a representative of the Korean government from Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism, who will be giving us a congratulatory address today.
그 외에 참여해 주신 정토 회원 여러분들 그리고 언론에서 오신 분들 모두 환영합니다.
And it's once again welcome to all the members of the JTS, another organization who are here today.
우리가 영상에서 이미 봤듯이 세계는 지금 여러 가지 위기에 봉착해 있습니다.
As we saw in the video we just saw, the world is facing multiple crises.
정말 우리가 위험한 경제에 있다 하는 것을 첫째 자각해야 합니다.
First, we have to acknowledge to ourselves and be very aware that we are in the midst of crisis.
그러나 대부분은 하루하루 살기에 바빠서 이런 위기를 잘 인식하지 못하고 있습니다.
However, we overlook the fact that we are in crisis because we're so busy with our everyday lives.
그러나 우리가 인식하지 못한다고 해서 위기가 오지 않지는 않습니다.
Just because we don't see it doesn't mean the crisis does not exist.
그래서 첫째 위기를 우리가 올바르게 인식을 하자는 겁니다.
So we have to rightfully see the fact of the crisis.
거기는 교육이 매우 중요합니다.
To that end, education is critical.
그리고 왜 이런 위기가 왔는가 하는 원인을 밝혀야 합니다.
And we also have to find the underlying cause to this crisis.
원인의 원인을 규명하다 보면 결국 우리들의 욕망이 원인입니다.
And as we discover deep into these underlying causes, we realize that it is our own greed that's causing this.
많이 생산해서 많이 소비하는 것이 잘 산다 하는 이런 소비주의에 우리가 중독되어 있습니다.
We are addicted to this fact of consumerism, in which the narrative of good life means consuming more.
이거는 담배나 마약, 알코올보다도 중독성이 훨씬 더 심각합니다.
And the addiction is stronger than that of drugs or cigarettes or alcohol.
그런 것들은 개인의 건강이나 사회의 건강을 해친다면 이것은 사람과 자연, 지구 전체의 건강을 해칩니다.
And if these damage the societal health, it damages the health of the planet as a whole as well.
또한 이것은 기후위기를 초래합니다.
And this also leads to climate crisis.
이것은 식량 부족이나 전염병 확산 등 많은 문제를 야기시키고 있습니다.
And also is the underlying cause driving the pandemics as well as food insecurities.
모든 사회의 이런 SNS나 이런 것들이 끊임없이 욕망을 부추겨가고 있습니다.
So everything we see here today that we are surrounded, including social media, is urging us to consume more.
어떻게 우리가 이 욕망으로부터 자유로울 수 있겠느냐?
How can we free ourselves from these urges?
이것은 개인의 행복에 있어서도 기후위기를 극복하는 데 있어서도 매우 중요합니다.
This is important not just to individual freedom, individual happiness, but in helping us overcome the crisis that we see.
우리가 만약에 이 욕망으로부터 좀 자유로울 수 있다면, 욕망의 충족을 통하지 않고도 행복을 누릴 수 있다면 우리는 이런 많은 문제를 해결할 수 있을 겁니다.
If we can free ourselves from our own attachments and desires, and if we attain happiness without resorting to desires, then we may be able to collectively resolve this crisis.
그런데 불행하게도 절제를 가르쳐야 할 종교가 이런 욕망을 부추기는 복을 비는 것으로 전락했습니다.
But unfortunately, religion that should bring discipline to our desires is instead urging these desires upon us.
그래서 종교가 본래의 모습으로 저는 돌아가야 된다 생각합니다.
That's why I believe that religion should go back to what it used to be.
그러므로 해서 우리가 하나하나 우리 개개인이 첫째는 이 소비주의로부터 벗어나야 합니다.
From that sense, we ourselves as individuals must free ourselves from the consumerism.
그러나 이것만 갖고는 어렵습니다.
But that it itself is not enough.
과거의 상처라면 우리가 치료를 할 수 있지만은 현재도 매를 맞고 있고 억눌리고 있다면 이 고통의 원인을 제거해야 합니다.
We can heal from past traumas, but if we are recreating traumas as we speak, then we have to find the underlying cause so we don't hurt ourselves anymore.
그래서 우리가 사회적 실천이 필요하다는 겁니다.
That's why we need social activism.
부처님의 가르침 자체가 저는 engaged Buddhism이라고 생각합니다.
So I believe the essence of Buddha's teaching itself is all about engaged Buddhism.
그래서 이 사회적 실천이 없는 불교는 오늘의 이러한 문제를 해결할 수가 없습니다.
So Buddhism without engagement, without social activism cannot solve today's problems.
그리고 더 이상 특정한 종교에 우리가 매여 있을 게 아니라 모든 종교인들이 이런 문제를 해결하는데 함께 해야 합니다.
And we should no longer be tied to a specific or particular religion, but all religious faith should come together to resolve this problem.
종교를 넘어서서 비종교인이라도 이 문제를 해결하는데 함께 했으면 합니다.
Going beyond the boundaries of religion, even non-religious people should join together to solve.
다시 한번 이런 자리에 와주신 모든 분들께 감사드립니다.
Once again, I'd like to thank all of you who are here today.
Thank you, Venerable Pomyun Sunim. During the past 5 days, participants of INEB conference engaged in various activities. Let's watch a sketch video.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Thoughts in my mind, but at some point I could bring it back to the breathing in and breathing out. At some
여기서 이렇게 차로 이렇게 돌아옵니다.
To ground ourselves quite literally in the place where we are right now, and have a chance to soak up something that is unique about South Korea, and gain something unique.
Are you okay with the smell?
Yeah, it's not too bad. Oh, it's very nutritious smell.
아주 멀리까지 가보고 싶어. 그곳에 승부를 만날 수가 있을지. 아주 멀리까지 가보고 싶어. 얼마나 또 모습을 바라볼 수 있을지. 작은 물병 하나 멋진 카메라 때문인지도 가방에 넣고서 언덕을 넘어 숲길을 헤치고.
Select one word. Compassion.
Everybody, happy birthday, this is your day, may your wishes.
Then one day, you had this line drawn across the land. And then we were not able to see each other anymore.
Really meaningful volunteering here, and also I have.
私は日本から来ました清水ひろえと申します。
Next, I would like to invite Mr. Kishore Thukral, INEB Executive Committee member, to the stage to read the 2022 INEB Conference Declaration.
Declaration: Buddhism in a Divided World, Peace, Planet, Pandemic, the 20th Biannual Conference of the International Network of Engaged Buddhists, Mungyong and Seoul, South Korea, from October 24th to the 29th, 2022. I will first read out the introduction. We, as spiritual friends, Kalyana Mitra, gathered together for the 20th Biennial Conference of the International Network of Engaged Buddhists, INEB, consisting of 82 participants from 19 countries. The conference, jointly organized by INEB and the Jungto Society Korea, was intended to more fully realize the potential of socially engaged Buddhism that supports peace, social justice, cultural and gender equality, inclusivity and diversity, transformative learning, and harmonizing initiatives associated with ecology and economics, that is, socially responsible right livelihood, intra and interfaith dialogue, and youth. The challenges confronting the world, as well as the opportunities for personal and social transformation, are ever present. The conference presented various approaches using our head, heart, and hands to address these challenges based on meditation and reflection, as well as creating opportunities to learn together from the INEB network and more deeply from the Korean context. This experience involved our entire being through meditation and by renewing relationships that are heart-connected, by using our hands to create art and enjoy food, and our heads through taking in new ideas, all of which collectively contribute to personal and social change. Our time together had other dimensions, such as building solidarity as we visited the demilitarized zone, examining more closely the realities of peace and conflict around the world. The conference theme of Buddhism in a Divided World aimed to further inform and develop INEB's 10-year strategic roadmap, The Way Forward, launched in 2017. This will also expand INEB's outreach to emerging like-minded social movements through engagement with the major themes of peace, planet, and pandemic. The concerns raised and the recommendations made during the workshops form the basis of this declaration and will help to define tangible action that can be taken in the 2 years before the next international INEB conference. And now for the declaration. Recognizing that in the second decade of the 21st century, peace is increasingly threatened by global, regional, and internal conflicts, INEB will support a peace-building culture by promoting principled dialogue among the parties, including interfaith actors, further developing and supporting an interdisciplinary Buddhist analytical model to examine the intersection of cultural, economic, social, historical, and geopolitical causation, and continuing to facilitate humanitarian support in conflict zones. Recognizing that a concerted planet-wide response to environmental degradation and climate mitigation is increasingly restricted by failure of political and economic will at the national and global level, INEB will continue investigating the unseen structural and cultural causes of environmental degradation that lead to environmental suffering, develop spiritually conscious environmental activists through building capacity of religious leaders and interfaith organizations through its Interreligious Climate and Ecology Network, ICE, and continue to grow its integrated community development model through the Eco Temple project, using cross-training in various sectors such as clean energy, land rehabilitation, community gardening, and ecological architecture. Recognizing that the global COVID-19 pandemic has exposed many systemic failures leading to increased inequality, increased poverty, and greater marginalization of vulnerable groups, INEB will support groups and organizations working with socially and economically disadvantaged communities to ensure equitable access to employment, education, and healthcare, including equitable access to vaccines and treatment in future pandemic and public health crises. Support groups and organizations working with children on child rights that include the right to protection, health, and education in order to ensure that there is no loss of education during public health crises. And support groups and organizations working at the grassroots level with women for empowering them to achieve equality, equity, and the right to live with dignity and self-esteem, including more robust protective measures during public health crises. Recognizing that cultural and structural alternatives cannot take root and survive without instilling values to ensure gender equality and social inclusion, GESI, and that there is ongoing systemic and systematic injustice against LGBTQAI+, women, youth, and members of marginalized communities, INEB will issue a clear public stand on GESI and take a leadership role in breaking down patterns and unlearning prejudices. Engage all network members to examine their programs and activities through the GESI lens, and organize and coordinate conversations and educational opportunities on GESI topics. Recognizing that Bhikkhuni ordination is still not allowed, acknowledged, or encouraged in Theravada and Vajrayana traditions, and that Bhikkhunis lack educational opportunities equal to bhikkhus, as well as opportunities to come together for exchange and solidarity, INEB will issue a public statement in support of Bhikkhuni ordination, continue to support efforts to revive the Bhikkhuni lineages through ordination, and collaborate with established Mahayana Bhikkhuni Sanghas to provide educational and exchange opportunities to Bhikkhunis of the other two traditions, as well as monastic education and training for lay women. Recognizing the need to build a harmonious society where peace and justice can thrive, and the essential role of transformative learning through education for change in fostering personal growth and social engagement, INEB will encourage systems of education that become tools for liberation, not control, are more responsive to the students' diversity, goals, and perspectives, foster creativity, and are student-centered. Foster concrete educational pathways for personal transformation and social change, incorporate issues of inequality and environmental crisis into the curriculum, and ensure that the educational rights and aspirations of minorities and disadvantaged persons are fulfilled while respecting their linguistic and cultural identities. And encourage collaborative educational ecosystems that foster alternative, holistic learning that balances results with student well-being and ensure space for students to express themselves and be heard. Recognizing that abuse and violence against children are global in scope, and that children are exposed to them within the family, educational institutions, including monastic schools, and in society at large, INEB will work with bhikkhus and bhikkhunis within its network to make them aware of what constitutes child abuse, verbal, mental, physical, sexual, and the legal recourse against it available to them in their respective countries, as well as the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, UNCRC. Approach monastic institutions through the bhikkhunis and bhikkhus of its network to help raise awareness about abuse within monastic settings, educate residents, adults and children, about abuse, and make them aware of the laws regarding child protection in their respective countries, and work with the monastic institutions to establish a mechanism for safeguarding children through a process that includes child participation at every stage. Recognizing that technology can build digital capacity for spiritual and social engagement, that digital technology can both empower and disempower depending on access to technology, and that access to it is often determined by political, economic, and educational status, INEB will form an internal working group, that is the eventual think tank, to understand and contextualize the challenges and opportunities posed by digital technologies in areas that include artificial intelligence and ethics, digital divide strategies, data privacy and protection of individuals, and impact on climate action through the lens of engaged Buddhism. Organize a series of education and capacity building activities to understand and appreciate the opportunities and challenges. Encourage and develop specific digital projects to be implemented within the INEB network as forms of social enterprise aimed at making the whole initiative self-sustaining and financially independent. Recognizing that Buddhist teachings and institutions can contribute to psycho-spiritual health that can be applied under diverse conditions within the family, the temple, following natural disasters, in suicide prevention, and in end-of-life care, recognizing the need to mainstream Buddhist concepts and practices that strengthen or deepen the psycho-spiritual care movement, and that a crisis in mental health has been exacerbated by the global pandemic, INEB will raise awareness and active support for young people who have become especially susceptible to mental illness during the COVID-19 pandemic and the wanton expansion of social media. Create an INEB-based Asian Buddhist chaplaincy program, especially for South and Southeast Asia, through short-term preliminary training courses, and continue to investigate and articulate new forms of psycho-spiritual therapy based on the cross-fertilization of Western psychiatric science and Buddhist thought and practice. In conclusion, we, the conference participants, rededicate our commitment as described within each section of this declaration. We affirm our engagement based on the profound and enduring teachings as guided by our teachers on the path of personal and social transformation through reflection and social action. Furthermore, we unanimously commit to developing an action plan that responds to this declaration as represented within the Way Forward, INEB's 10-year strategic plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Kishore, for reminding us what we shared and what we committed to do to move forward. Next, congratulatory remarks from Park Bo-gyun, the Minister of Culture, Sports, and Tourism of the Republic of Korea, will be delivered by Kim Dae-hyun, Head of the Religious Affairs Office. Please give him a big round of applause.
예, 우리 장관님께서 오늘 꼭 직접 참석하셔서 축하의 말씀을 하려고 그런 생각을 갖고 계셨는데 일정이 좀 잘 안 맞고 또 사전에 계획된 일정 때문에 참석을 못 하시면서 꼭 우리 법륜 스님을 비롯해서 우리 해외에서 오신 분들 참석자들께 그 안타까운 마음을 좀 전해달라고 저한테 신신당부를 하셨습니다. 그 마음을 담아서 제가 축하의 말씀을 대신 전해드리도록 하겠습니다.
So the minister really wanted to be here, but the calendars did not work out, and he had previous engagement. But he asked me sincerely to speak from his heart and my heart the congratulations for this event, especially to Venerable Bumyun as the successful host of this event.
안녕하십니까? 문화체육관광부 장관 박복윤입니다.
Hello, my name is Park Bo-gyun. I serve as the Minister of Culture, Sports, and Tourism.
지난 2003년에 이어 20년 만에 대한민국에서 열린 제20차 국제참여불교연대 대회의 마지막 날입니다. 이번 행사를 위해 애쓰신 정토의 지도법사 법륜 스님, 김은숙 대표님을 비롯한 관계자분들과 멀리 해외에서 참여해 주신 국제참여불교연대 회원님들께 깊은 감사의 인사를 드립니다.
Today is the last day of the 20th Biennial Conference of International Network of Engaged Buddhists. The last time it was held in Korea was in 2003. I would give my deepest thanks to Venerable Bumyun Snim and members of the INEB who have traveled far from all corners of the world to participate.
정토의 설립 취지는 개인은 행복하고 사회는 평화로우며 자연은 아름다운 정토 세상을 만드는 것입니다. 물질적 풍요 속에 감정적 빈곤을 겪는 현대인들의 내적 평화와 사회적 화합을 위해 부처님의 가르침을 따라 세계 곳곳에서 활동하시는 여러분의 열정과 노고에 진심 어린 감사를 드립니다.
Jongto Society's founding principle is to create a Jongto world in which the individual can be happy, society can be peaceful, and nature can be beautiful. In today's world where we suffer an emotional poverty in midst of material plenty, your efforts on behalf of inner peace and social harmony based on the Buddha's teaching is truly needed and appreciated.
이번 대회에는 전 세계 20여 개 나라에서 150여 명의 불교 활동가들이 참여해 주셨습니다. 세계 곳곳에서 활동하시는 많은 분들이 한자리에 모여 분열된 세계에서 불교의 역할을 모색하는 뜻깊은 시간이었습니다. 오늘 심포지움은 대회 기간에 이루어진 논의들을 통해 각자의 종교적 상상력과 비전을 나누는 자리입니다.
In this conference, we have 150 Buddhist activists from 20 plus countries. It was a meaningful gathering discussing the role of Buddhism in a divided world. This afternoon's symposium is a forum whereby we share the fruits of our discussions, outcomes, and actions from the past few days.
현재 세계는 전쟁, 기후변화, 팬데믹 등 수많은 위기에 처해 있습니다. 세계 곳곳에서 서로 대립하며 갈등을 빚는 상황이 연출되고 있습니다. 이런 상황에서 공통의 위기의식을 바탕으로 세계 평화 구축과 지구 환경 개선 그리고 통합과 화해를 위해 지혜를 모으고 해법을 모색하는 것은 대단히 의미 있는 일입니다. 모쪼록 오늘 심포지움이 위기에 처한 지구와 인류 발전을 위한 아이디어를 공유하는 시간이 되기를 바랍니다.
Today's world suffers from wars, climate change, pandemic, and other countless crises. We see tensions and conflicts wherever we turn. In midst of this, coming together to share a common sense of urgency and wisdom to construct a sustainable world peace based on reconciliation and unity is truly significant. It is my sincere hope that today's symposium can be a place of discovery for ideas that can assist the humanity and the earth in overcoming the many challenges we face.
끝으로 오늘 심포지움을 정성껏 준비해 주신 관계자 여러분께 다시 한번 감사를 드립니다. 부처님의 가르침을 실천하고 행동하는 세계 참여 불교연대의 모든 분들께 부처님의 자비 광명이 늘 함께하기를 기원합니다.
Finally, I would like to reiterate my thanks to the staff and all those who have made this symposium possible. May the blessings, light, and compassion of the Buddha be on all the INEB members who make his teachings come alive through your actions.
감사합니다.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to invite Reverend Dr. Park Jong-hwa, Senior Pastor of the Kyungdong Presbyterian Church, who will give a congratulatory remark on behalf of the South Korean religious leaders. Thank you.
I was asked to say something not in Korean, but in English for your participants. I'm here now on behalf of a Korean interfaith network for peace and reconciliation in Korea. So we are small community of members from different religious communities in Korea. From Chongto Buddhism, from where the Pomyul Sunim is the chief of Chongto society, and one Buddhism from Korean Buddhism, and Roman Catholic Church, Protestant Church, the Anglican Church, and also from Korean folk religion, Chondokyo. We small group of people group together every month here in Chongto House with Pomyul Sunim. Every time when we meet here monthly, we have a very big, very wonderful Buddhist breakfast. And take also a small time of morning table talk about peace, justice, environment, and also love. We do it, we have done it 23 years. On behalf of this committee, I say thank you very much for Chongtoe, Pomyul Sunim, and all our colleagues. I saw here the main theme of this conference. So, spirituality and faith coming together in a divided world. You should add another word. In a divided world and in the divided country, Korea. We are living in a divided world, also in divided land. Korea has double division of this agony. Thank you very much for coming to Korea, to a divided land and divided world. We can talk about unity and coming togetherness of overcoming division within us and around us. And thank you very much for your this engagement to get this work through. I'm a Christian. The Christians, they say a greeting when we have Christmas season. Because at that time, Christ has come, he became flesh, he became human being to live in this world, in a divided world, for peace, for reconciliation. That's why we greet each other, Merry Christmas. Today, I think, on a special day, all of the people, all the Buddhists came together here in this world, in this land, to talk about peace and justice, togetherness, spirituality, and faith. Then you say, I hope, I pray, Buddha is coming to us. If he comes to us, he becomes human being like us. We all become living Buddhas. So that's why let me say to you a Buddhist greeting. Merry Buddhamas. Merry, merry Buddhamas. In this conference. So I remember a wonderful American Christian pastor who was leading human rights movement and liberation movement in the United States, Martin Luther King. He said, to what extent can we be religious people, or how can we be a really trustworthy, wonderful people of religion? He said, religion should be a living entity, not just explaining how the world is changing, how the world is looking like. It means that the religion should not be satisfied with saying how is the temperature of our daily life. It means a thermometer. That's only part of religion. Real religion should be the religion which not only explain the world, but also change the world. From one division to unity, from injustice to justice, from non-freedom to peace, from aggravation of the world to sustainability of the world. This is, again, engagement of religious people together. You are those engaged Buddhists to change the world in a divided world, to change the world for a unified world. Namely, I say, if I were Chongto Buddhist, for a Chongto world. First do it. Make it visible so that we can enjoy this kind of justice, peace, and freedom, and the environment, sustainable world in this world. Let me say to you then, lastly, a African wisdom to be shared by us. Africans say, if you want to go fast, then go alone. If you want to go farther, deeper, higher, you should go together. This is the solidarity for peace, justice, environment, love, very wonderful world which we are dreaming of. This world should be a Chongto world. This world should be a Shalom world. God bless you, heaven bless you, and Chongto is among you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Reverend Pak Jong-hwa. Now, His Excellency Harsha Navaratne, High Commissioner for Sri Lanka in Canada, and the chairperson of INEB Executive Committee, will give a keynote speech, Roles of Spirituality and Faith in a Divided World.
Good afternoon to everyone. Let me start with quoting His Holiness Dalai Lama, his message in COP26 in October 31st, 2021. I quote, "Today we need to address the future, not with prayers prompted by fear, but by taking realistic action founded on a scientific understanding. The inhabitants of our planet are interdependent as never before. Everything do we affect our human companions as well as innumerable animal and plant species." Unquote. When we look at the world today, we see crises that we never imagined or expected. In order to limit the consequences and damage, we all need to work together in greater cooperation and solidarity. We need to find a path towards personal awakening in order to come out of the present suffering as a society that leads to a safer, harmonious, happier, and greener world. We need to act and recognize the importance of the humanity sense of oneness, our interconnectedness that links every human being as part of us. Spirituality plays a big role in making that reality, as well as taking ownership to care of our common future. The challenges we face today are immense. The world is divided, internal conflict among ethnic groups, communities, wars fought between nations, hunger, drought, climate change, ocean pollution, degrading natural resources, exploitation by multilateral companies, media domination and manipulation, citizen distrust of democracy, tyrannical regimes taking domination over nation, are all contributing to this current crisis. Since we as a human being are responsible for creating these issues, it is also our responsibility to confront and address them. It is time we came together at a global level to understand and commit ourselves to address these issues in a ways that bring future benefits. First, we must individually be responsible to find solutions to these issues and carry the message to greater society, which creates hope for the future. I have spent last 45 years of my life as a development practitioner. My journey began as a volunteer in a rural village in Sri Lanka, bordering to a jungle far away from the city. During my time as a development worker in my country, I have witnessed tragedy after tragedy, whether man-made or a mutual natural causes. I have experienced the loss of friends and colleagues who have, seeking to make social change, lost their life in process. Some of them were even labeled as terrorists by the ruling regimes, though considered heroes by the common masses. Unfortunately, heroism and politics in my country, such that ironically a person can be called either a hero or a terrorist depending on how you feel or wish. This may not necessarily be based on facts of justifiable reasoning. Under the guise of democracy, political parties create division and destroy the very fabric of a social and moral values and ethics. They are responsible for pushing a country to a desperate condition, resulting in an economic crisis and continuous human suffering. Many people ask me how it is possible Sri Lanka, as a predominantly Buddhist country, to go through such a violent times and after one another. I have also often asked myself this difficult question. During my childhood, our whole village community used to live as one big family. The village temple was the center, the heart of my community. When the temple bell rang, we would all come together at the temple preaching hall. I had never seen a police officer present in the village. The first time I saw a police officer was when I left my village and went to a boarding school in the city. The village was full of life, thrived in the values of cooperation, coexistence, shared resources, and solidarity. Living around the temple, we learned to live that way, and the monks were our gurus, teachers. Unfortunately, as time passed, politics entered the temples and communities started to be more dependent on a politician. Some of the Buddhist monks who were spiritual masters also started to follow political trends rather than their faith and value system. Lord Buddha teaching that promoted unity and oneness within one village, society, and a country start to fall apart. When society started to divide itself by ethnicity, religion, political belief, disaster after disaster followed. Most of you may understand this and may have experienced similar historic events and recollections. Today we live in a society where many of us contradicting and violating its spiritual teaching and ethical and moral foundation. This has created a huge challenge for a civil society activist and a true social movement in countries such as ours. People are moving away from moral and ethical values in their search for quick and easy answers to existing social political issues. It is important to seek the best method to practice what we preach, believe will stimulate social awakening. Do our politicians, leaders, preachers, practitioners, and do-gooders really practice what they preach? It's hard to say yes. Sometimes those recognized as spiritual gurus preaching to a large group are also responsible for breaking down society and contributing towards the ongoing negative trends through their teachings. It is, in fact, a real challenge these days to identify authentic, sincere, and truthful personalities. So, what should be the role of a true leader of the people? A true leader needs to be 100% committed towards the common good and advance gradually and genuinely towards the social and national goals based on our values. He or she needs to move forward with like-minded people, with understanding, with clear worldview, and with the right set of attitudes. Great importance must be given towards setting long-term goals and having the readiness to face challenges, all the while remembering that it will be a long haul. A true leader must also be prepared to practice what he or she preaches, so as to be example and role model to others. As activists, we need to understand the challenge faced by us, discuss them, and continuously share them with our peers. I come from a country where bad planning, mismanagement, corruption, huge debt issues brought the country economic down to the ground. This, along with the complicated social issues, has driven my country close to a bankruptcy that has resulted in increased human suffering. Today, people are on the road asking for a system change. Policymakers need to plan and implement comprehensive reform program, including democratization, the structures. Many do not understand that the last 74 years of political party-based politics are responsible for the present situation in Sri Lanka. Doing away with the democratic parliamentary system and adopting centralized executive presidency, where the majority lean towards nationalism, where ignoring the needs and voices of the minority, has seriously damaged and destroyed the country's vibrant social fabric. As a social activist, therefore, we demand decentralization of executive presidential power as also essential constitutional changes based on legitimate good governance for the common good. A community such as ours, that is International Network of Engaged Buddhists, need to look at our respective countries' past, present, and future. This includes mainstreaming our engaged Buddhist values and putting those values into practice to benefit society as a whole. As Thich Nhat Hanh said, I quote, "Even the most painful and violent experience of life demand our full attention. When we are attentive to our own suffering, we will know that of others. That knowledge can help break cycles of suffering and violence in the world around." I unquote. In essence, he teaches us to in peace and mindfulness. In peace and mindfulness. Mahatma Gandhi said, I quote, "My life is my message," unquote. And Martin Luther King, example of the great nonviolent demonstration at the civil rights movement in USA, has influenced Ajahn Sulak to call them his spiritual Kalyana Mitra for a different part of the world to his own country and his village. INEB was given birth in his ancestral boathouse among a diverse meeting of Kalyana Mitra, which is a significant historic event for all of us. He and his co-founders created this network, which has expanded immensely today. The solid foundation they built has formed a strong network which resilient and able to confront challenges and differences such as religion, ethnicity, and geographical distances. On the 90th birthday of Ajahn Sulak, we will all remember him as the greatest Upasaka during our time, who honored, served Buddhist precepts and practices with utmost devotion. He now looks to our younger generation to follow his path and take INEB towards the prosperous future. Let me finish with one message, one request from Punyum Sunim, and especially our friends in Korea. It's very important what Punyum Sunim and you all are doing in Korea to spread all over the world. So tomorrow in our executive committee, I'll be proposing that Punyum Sunim and Junto Society, and also since the minister is here, the Korea leads the INEB Peace and Reconciliation Program. We would like to propose that Korea with the Junto Society takes over and run the INEB Peace and Reconciliation Program. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Harsha. We will now have a 20-minute break, followed by our panel discussion. Please return by 3:30. Thank you.
예, 다과 준비 안내 말씀드리겠습니다. 저희가 다과 준비를 하려고 했었는데요. Okay, hello everyone. Did you have a good break? Yes, we will resume the event in a few minutes. You are invited to return to your seat. And all the panels, please come forward and come up to the stage, please. Thank you.
Welcome back. Welcome back, everyone. We're now ready to begin the panel discussion portion of the public symposium. I'll now introduce the moderator for the panel discussion, Mr. Vidyananda KV Soon. Vidya is an entrepreneur and Buddhist practitioner who works globally as well as in his home country of Malaysia. He is also the co-founder of Learning Beyond Schooling and Family Place. He has taught Buddhism for many years alongside his roles as a digital transformation and development consultant. He currently serves on INEB's executive committee. Please welcome Vidya.
Thank you, Dexter. Distinguished guests. This morning, we took a trip to the demilitarized zone, DMZ, and it was the first time for me. And I would suppose it was the first time for many people. We saw for ourselves how difficult it is to attain peace in this just one region. What more everywhere else? So it was a clear message that, for me, the world is divided, very divided, right? And this will continue to stay in my mind. However, reflecting on the conference the last few days, I, as well as many of you here, would agree that we all were inspired to make changes, to see that we can work in our own ways for peace, for our planet, and to really overcome the problems that's caused by this pandemic, to heal this divided world. So we have heard from our teachers like Venerable Penom Sunim, Ajahn Sulak, the Venerables, and other speakers during the conference. We were inspired by them. Okay. And just now, this afternoon, we were inspired by by Excellency's Harsha's speech. Okay, and also a clear reminder for us that action needs to happen. Right. So today, for the rest of this afternoon, we will hear from 5 very distinguished speakers to learn, to be inspired by their work and experience, and above all, to absorb their wisdom so that they can become ours and make the change in ourselves to heal this divided world. So allow me the opportunity to introduce the panelists to you. Okay, on my far right, Reverend Anje Wong. He's currently the chair of the Board of Trustees at the National Council of YMCAs of Korea, as well as the chair of the Korea Christian Democracy Foundation. Previously, he was the Secretary General of the Christian Conference of Asia in Hong Kong. He has served in many other capacities within the region and internationally. He has also founded both the Korean Campaign for Landmines and the Asian Migrant Center in Hong Kong. So, Reverend An Ji-Hoon. Seated on his left is the Venerable Kalupahana Piyaratana Tero. He is the Abbot Purana Mahaviharaya Kabilaya Pala in Hakmana in Sri Lanka. He's a pioneering monk in the area of environmental protection, and he is leading the way for reinstating the Theravada Bhikkhuni order and the ordination in Sri Lanka. The Venerable has a long-term commitment to peace and reconciliation, which includes interfaith dialogues for more than 20 years. The Venerable is also a member of the Human Rights Commission in Sri Lanka. This Venerable Kalupahana. Thank you. Seated on my right, His Excellency Ambassador Pekka Metso. He is Finland's ambassador to the Republic of Korea. His Excellency has spent 34 years at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Finland. He received a master's degree in economic management from the Turku School of Economics and Business Administration. After serving as ambassador at large for intercultural and religious dialogue processes in Helsinki, he began his term as ambassador of the Republic of Finland in the Republic of Korea in 2020. Ambassador Metso has previously served as ambassador of Finland to Slovenia and Bosnia-Herzegovina, and as head of the unit for Asia and Oceania at the Department for the Americas and Asia in Helsinki, among many other distinguished postings. Prior to diplomatic work, he has worked in international finance. Please welcome His Excellency. On my left, Madam Shu Ming Eng. Shu Ming Eng is a Singaporean citizen, graduated with a PhD in sociology from the University of Hawaii in 1979. Shu Ming Eng is married to Sombat Sombon, a Lao national and a fellow graduate from the University of Hawaii. Shu Ming and Sombat lived in Laos since 1986. Both Sombat and Shu Ming were actively involved in community and education development and the promotion of Lao civil society engagement in social and economic development in Laos. From 1986 to 2008, Shu Ming Eng worked with UNICEF in Laos, China, and Timor-Leste. She left UNICEF in 2008 and now runs a social business promoting Lao women handicraft in Vientiane. In 2012, sadly, Sombat Sombon was disappeared in front of a police post in Vientiane. Since her husband's enforced disappearance, Shu Ming has mounted a relentless international campaign to urge the Lao government to investigate Sombat Sombon's disappearance, resolve the case and return him safely to her and her family. To ensure that the life and work of Sombat will not be forgotten, Shu Ming wrote a book entitled Silencing of a Laotian Son, The Life, Work, and Enforced Disappearance of Sombat Sombon, which was published by SAM, a Spirit in Education movement, together with INEB. The book is available, I believe, out here. Shu Ming is also a long-time friend of Ajahn Sulak and has actively participated in many activities and conferences for SAM and INEB. Please welcome Shu Ming. Thank you. And further to Shu Ming's left is Nachale Bunyapi Sompan. I hope I said it correctly. Yes. Or her nickname is Hua. Hua is a trans woman activist who has experience working in project coordinator and project assistant positions on different research and advocacy projects. She has worked with organizations and groups of all sizes, from local non-profit organizations to international organizations and networks. Her experience in founding successful support and advocacy groups and lasting networks are her career achievements that prove her passion and commitment to support the health and human rights of transgender and LGBT people locally and globally. This includes being the first transgender program supervisor for Sisters, a leading transgender organization in Thailand, being a founding member of the Foundation of Transgender Alliance for Human Rights, and being the first coordinator of the Asia Pacific Transgender Network. Besides these achievements, she had continued working on the project and the program for trans and gender non-binary individuals. For instance, she helped coordinate the development of Asia Pacific Transgender Health Blueprint in 2014 and 2015. She has also worked as the transgender and gender non-binary health advisor at Alphicia Community Health Center, in New York City, where she oversaw the trans health services for trans and gender non-binary patients from July 2019 to September 2020. Currently, she works part-time as the project manager for the intersex and trans movement building projects in Austria, at Austria Lesbian Foundation for Justice. In addition, she's now managing the 2-year project and supervising 3 staff for the Transgender Health Access Project, which is funded by the Thai Health Promotion Foundation. Please welcome Hua. Thank you. We will now dive straight into each of the speakers' presentation. We'll start from my right all the way to the left. So let me give the mic to Reverend Nan Jae-hoon to begin his presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, moderators, for your kind word of introductions. I am very pleased to be here with you this afternoon. I have prepared a short paper, so due to the time factor, I like to go through. I would like to express my sincere thanks to organizer of the International Network of Engaged Buddhists, its 20 years biennial international conference, for inviting me as one of the panelists. I am deeply impressed by His Excellency Ambassador Harsha Navaratna's keynote address on the theme of roles of spiritualities and faith in a divided world. Thank you so much for your thoughtful and powerful deliberations. Let me leave the other fellow panelists to make their comments on the keynote address. However, I would like to share with you some of my thoughts on building a culture of peace at this conference. We are experiencing severe human tragedies due to natural and human-made disasters that have taken so many places in our day-to-day lives. At the same time, we are facing many other barriers in our daily lives, such as racial and communal barriers, ideological and socio-political barriers, religious and gender barriers that disturb our lives. Therefore, we have to find some ways and means how we can break these barriers, bearing in mind that transforming life should be our utmost task to build a culture of peace at this juncture of history. André Gide, French writer, once said that God is available to us 24 hours a day. It is true that God is not only available to us, but also in our midst at every moment of our lives. However, our problem is that we have no capacities for knowing God or loving God properly. We have no capacities for sharing God's love with our neighbors. We have no capacities for demonstrating God's care for other fellow creatures. Instead, we have a tendency to use violence in order to exploit our other creature by manipulating, by modifying, and by demolishing them. As a result, we are now facing so many negative problems in our daily lives. We, the human race, will never come to end violent behavior unless we cultivate the culture of peace in our lives. In order to cultivate the culture of peace, we have to admit that peace is a divine gift for all God's people, or for all human races. But it is come not in a ready state, but it is the process that carries a great prize. The prize is metanoia, conversion, or repentance. What is the peace? That is the divine gift. What is the peace we are called upon to make, keep, or cultivate in our midst? I believe that peace is the condition of security, belonging, contentment, and fullness of life for all God's people. It includes offering and sustaining relationship to all and with all. It includes constructive and purposeful activities and mutual services and encouragement free from undue stress and anxieties. Peace is the state of harmony, friendship, and reconciliation among the people or a group of people. You are here because you are casting our vision, wisdom, hopes, and commitments to build a peace in this world. In conventional understanding of a culture, it may be described as a total of passed on ideas, beliefs, values, and knowledges, which constitute the basis for social action. Generally speaking, we may categorize culture as two overall perceptions of high culture in the arts, literature, philosophy, and low culture as popular culture or working people culture. When we talked about the culture of peace, it means that high and low cultures are closely intertwined in every level in building, making, and keeping peace in our daily life. In order to understand the culture clearly, let me quote from the H. Richard Niebuhr in his book, Christ and Culture. According to Niebuhr, the cultures are forever seeking to combine peace with prosperity, justice with order, freedom with welfare, truth with beauty, scientific truth with moral good, technical proficiency with practical wisdom, holiness with life, all this with all the rest. After all, culture is a social heritage which is received and transmitted from generation to generations. For a culture of peace to take roots, we have to raise our prophetic voice, genuinely approach its people of other faiths systematically, coordinate with civic groups, and enthusiastically involved in building peace in our lives. We are called to be partners in building communities of peace with justice in our day-to-day life. In order to build a culture of peace or build community of peace for all races, you have to meet or gather together as much as possible and encourage one another all the way through. This is our way of overcoming our weaknesses or our tendency of remaining as silent majorities. As long as we remain in silent majorities, just peace will never stay with us. Peace-building ethos and peacemaking pathos are the utmost task for all of us. Therefore, we ought to do is the metanoia, because we are unable to properly articulate philosophical framework of peace. We are unable to live as a good neighbors. We are unable to deliver good news to the poor. We are unable to work together as a partner. Let us go through metanoia in order to love each other, to share with one another, to make our communities become truly humane, a community based on equality, justice, peace, and happiness. These things we can do, and we can do now. May it be so indeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend, for a very inspiring presentation to us. I like the idea of community, and I'm inspired by how you shared very briefly, but very importantly, the values of your spiritual traditions, and quickly take it out to emphasize the importance of culture and community. So this I think is an important point. Right? Before I move on to Venerable Kalupahana, just a couple of things. I stopped at Hua just now. Actually, I should have also mentioned Excellency Ambassador has joined us on the stage. So he didn't mention that. Okay, he's always with us, so I always assume that he's always with us. Tarashasha. Okay, so you can welcome him again. Yes. My apologies. Okay, so also before we go on, if you have questions to ask, please note it down, and at the end of the presenters' sessions, we will take questions, have a discussion with the panelists. Okay, so now I'd like to invite Venerable Kalupahana to make his presentation on this topic. Thank you.
Friends in Dhamma, it is pleasure to have an opportunity to say few words in this conference. The theme of this conference is the roles of the spirituality and religions in divided world. So, I am not an academic person or professional scholar. I am a practitioner. So I would like to say some experience which I had in my works. It is about late 19th. You know, we had a huge war, civil war in my country. It's more than 30 years. Still we are having the wound from that war. So, at that time, we are involving in interfaith dialogue. So I decided to go to meet the leaders of the LTTE, the rebellion groups who are fighting with the Sri Lankan government. So we gathered some Buddhist monks, Catholic and Christian priests, and Islam and Hindu priests. As a group, we went to that area. I don't know why all the two parties gave permission to us to enter the battlefield. We went that area. Today morning, we had a good experience about the no man's shoe. At that time, we also had no man's zone. The one part belongs to the Sri Lankan government, controlling by the Sri Lankan army. So some 1 kilometers of area, there are no any owner for that 1 kilometers of land. So beyond that, the LTT, the rebellion groups controlling that area. Only the ICRC can pass this no man's zone. If someone enter to that area, the both parties will shoot them without ICRC. So however, with help of some religious leaders of the north and east area, we went to that area, and in our last checkpoint of the Sri Lankan army, they warmly welcomed us, and they gave permission to enter the no man's zone. And in other side, the LTT leaders were waiting for welcome us. So we went that area, we met the leaders, and we had good discussion. We urged them to come to the peace process. So after that meeting, one of the leaders came, the political leader of that organization, and he went back. On the way back, his jeep was blasted. So we heard the huge noise. Then the other cadres said us, our master's jeep was finished. So we were afraid because we are in their territory and we are with these LTT cadres. So fortunately, the leader changed his vehicle on the way. So he was escaped from the attack. His jeep only targeted. So in the night time, all the monks and priests were very afraid to stay there because of this incident. They told me we have to go back to the Colombo. So after the 5 p.m., all the roads are closed. All the parties not open the roads until the following day, 7 a.m. But all the monks are urging to me, they want to go. So I am the organizer. I have responsibility. So I went to meet the LTT leaders office, and I said, our group want to go to the Colombo this night. Please open the road. Then what LTT leader said to me? He said, if the Sri Lanka government is allowing, we can open the road in this night. So I called to the army command of that area. The mobile phones are very rare at that time. So it is very luxurious things at that time. So one of my Colombo friends gave me a mobile phone for this purpose, journey. Then I called to the army commander and he answered me. And I gave the phone to the LTT leader. And they discussed. And they agreed to open the road in that midnight. And we came back to the Colombo. One of the results of this journey, a man who are involving in the rebellion group, he was the translator of the leaders of the LTTE. He had some problem, his eyesight. He wanted operation for his eyes. There are no facilities in that area. He requested us to help him. So we came back and we asked to the president about this matter. I don't know what happened. He came to the Colombo and did his surgery and went back to his area. So these are our experience. So what we learn from this kind of works, it is the roles of spirituality and the religious leaders. The role of the spirituality and the religions is not dividing the people or country or society. The role of the religion is united the country and the people of all over the world. They have capacity. The LTT trust on us. The Sri Lankan government and the army trust on us. Because we are a spiritual person, we are not politicians. We are not any other professionals. They have some kind of respect on religious leaders. That is why they agree to do that things. It is a violating law in the wartime, but they were agreed as a respect to the religious leaders. So, in today's world, when we are looking on the world, we can see there are so many deviations on the world, on ethnicity, on religiosity, caste-based, gender-based, so many deviations. Unfortunately, our religious leaders and our religious societies, institutions, are encouraging this deviation. They are supporting to that. They are promoting that deviation. But the role of the religiosity or religious institution is not promote the deviation, but unite the society and the human being. So, as my experience, I have been involved in the interfaith dialogue more than 20 years and working on the field of human rights and peace and reconciliation more than 20 years in my country. So my experience, we can do many things for the betterment of the world. So we have to follow our own religious thoughts and religious doctrines in few way. So there are so many interpretations, misinterpretations, misguides, many things happening in the society. Some monks, some priests, they are giving misinterpretation to their doctrine, and they are misleading the society and giving misunderstanding to the whole world. So today, the world is not we are not living in the deviation era. We are living in the uniting era. So we have to be united in this era. So we have to understand each other. We have to accept there are diversity in this world. And we have to respect that diversity. Whether it is religiosity, ethnicity, gender, anything. There are diversity. So we have to respect that diversity. First, we have to accept them. There are diversity and we have to respect that. So, I would like to conclude my few words with a quotation from the Ajahn Buddhadasa. He said, "One should not regard our friend's religion as inferior to ours. Each religion is unique. If we understand to translate worldly language into spiritual language, we would respect all the scriptures, whether they are Bible, Quran, or Tripitaka, as they are. They are there to guide us to be better human beings and serve others more than ourselves. Those of different religions should work together, also with non-believers, for the betterment of humankind." Thank you.
Thank you, Venerable. Very inspiring story of real life, inspirational, spiritual leaders being engaged with society, not just sitting back. You know, I used to tell some of my friends, don't just be comfortable behind the comfort of your temples, you know, churches or mosque walls. If you're always comfortable inside, there's suffering outside. And this shows a very, very inspiring story that we can take as our learning, and hopefully can inspire you and some of your young leaders to go forward, to be on the field, as it were. Okay. Thank you, Venerable. Right. Okay, so just one, I would like to add some announcements before each speaker. I would like to also, at this point, take the opportunity to welcome listeners and viewers online who's watching this via the broadcast. Thank you for signing in. All right. So let's proceed to the next speaker. I'd like to invite His Excellency, Ambassador Pekka Metso, to present his views. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm so honored to be here, Vidyanda, and more in my peace mediation work of 5 years that I carried. You were part of my delegation where we went to places. This is how the world should do together. We in the diplomacy working together with the representative of religious organizations. I strongly believe that. When I was ambassador in Bosnia and Herzegovina, the politicians were just lying to me. Who told me sometimes the truth? They were the religious leaders. The Mufti of Sarajevo was my best friend and the most important person to reach the people. We maybe could have avoided some of the horrible things in Bosnia if politicians, if diplomats would have talked to the religious leaders. That didn't take place, and there are still big dangers in Bosnia and Herzegovina also. Look at now Russia. What's going on there? That's close to my own country. The horrible devils have taken over that country. We used to think that there's order and international laws are obeyed around the world. All that is wiped out. A country has decided to take over a neighboring country and use even religion as an argument for that. This is something that we in Europe, we feel totally disgusted and taken surprise. In the 80s, we had the OSCE meeting in Helsinki, and we thought that the structures in the Euro-Atlantic discussions were in place. Little did we know. We all were so wrong, and we have to admit that that's the only way how we can get better, to realize, not to say in passive form that the mistakes were taken, but say by oneself, I was wrong. I didn't see the devil that was there in the eye. Thank you. Maybe that was only for some of the listeners. Well, okay. I would like to say also that the world has changed in many other ways. I started in New York as a young diplomat in early 90s, when I think my government thought that let's send a young boy there to work so he will be silent and not talk so much about human rights. That was given to his task. Little did they know. That was the spark to this fight that I still continue. And that's why I ended up also working together with religious and spiritual leaders. The truth is not that simple. We have to have these dialogues inclusive and co-owned, but we always have to watch who is on board. Let's not be, again, naive and think that things are working normally and without checking with whom we are doing this cooperation. I really liked in the small video that we had here in the beginning that said that the truth has suffered a digital death. Yes, indeed. When I started in the 90s in New York, I think the world didn't really look so carefully at the human rights violations around the world. Maybe there wasn't enough information there. Then later on, I worked in Geneva again for United Nations. Universal periodic reports of the human rights violations of the countries came to the limelight. So even countries like North Korea worried or cared at least what the world is saying to them when their report is coming to the limelight and the microphones and the cameras are rolling. But now we have come to another extreme. Where is the truth nowadays? Have we lost the track of it completely? So these are the developments that have taken place. In a way, 90s, I always say that it wasn't better before. Definitely in the 90s, we were also blind and we didn't see those things. But then on the other hand, new challenges are coming around all the time on our desk. When I started in the 90s, we were strongly working for women's rights, for gender rights, for LGBT rights. But look at it now. How many steps we have taken backwards again. So don't take things as granted. The fight has to continue. And if we do otherwise, believing that the laws that we have created, we need the laws, the international order, but it seems that the world is full of those who are not willing to obey those rules that we have made together. I've been living here 2 years in Korea. I'm also shocked here that there's a big division between young women and young men here. They are fighting each other. It's a division of the country. These things have to be taken seriously by politicians, because only by having an inclusive society you can have a societal peace in any society. And I think that has to be the goal of any government that comes around in the world. One important thing also is getting different generations involved. I'm so damn proud that we have 36 years old female prime minister in Finland and 74-year-old president in Finland, and they totally agree what are the strategic needs for the country. So generations should not fight. Generations should unite when we see, in our case, the devil next door that has united our country all over. So let's have all the generations on board in our discussions, in every meeting that we have. But youth and elderly both. I think that's also a very good way to get good solutions when both of those are listened to and are engaging. Cultures, religions, identities should not be seen as competing, but interdependent. That's the great message of life, that we are bound to complement each other. Listening the other panelists here, I'm totally thrilled, like, of their own experiences coming from a different world than mine, that I can learn a lot. One thing that maybe have come also a little bit up here also is that religions and cultures or identities are no monoliths, but dynamic and open processes. There are also lots of interpretations of the things, but we should not stop there. We should just make the world fairer with the religions, because all religions, all the real spiritual leaders that I have met in my life, they are for the peace, they are for the inclusiveness and co-owner of this globe. But let's watch again. Not everybody is on board. We have to, in my work as in diplomacy, I have clearly said that we have to engage religious leaders and somehow also help to provide the platform for intra and interfaith dialogues and discussions. I was really taken by His Excellency Harsha Kumara Navaratne's speech that you made earlier here. You are really pointing out that how politics, on the other hand, have quite often kidnapped religions. We have Russia is a typical case of that. You can say vice versa, or that the state has kidnapped for religion for its own purposes. So again, we have to be watchful of all things. But when these discussions are honestly built upon, I think we can together, not separately, but together, build tolerance and understanding between the communities. I really look forward also asking you and answering your tough questions about in this horrible geopolitical mess that we are living right now, and how the religions can contribute to this of finding solution. But finally, I would just like to say that the worst kind of fuel leading to disturbances in our societal peace is provided when people feel that they do not count, or, in the worst case, that they don't even exist. And much more needs to be done to change this. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you for bringing up the sessions that we had from in 2019, I think, when Mu and I and some of our members here, we went there with Excellency to visit Myanmar, Thailand, Singapore to understand for himself. That was the first time for me. It's so refreshing to see from a governmental perspective the involvement, to understand the situation on the ground. And this reflected in the presentation just now. I think the dimension of politics, geopolitics needs to be considered if we want to bring in this, to bridge the division that's happening in our world, you know. Yeah, there are too many interesting points to say. I think we can bring up again during the discussions. Thank you very much for bringing this. So next up, I'd like to invite Shu Ming to make a presentation. Shu Ming.
Good afternoon, everyone. I feel honored, at the same time humbled by being here on this panel and to speak to such a distinguished group of people sitting on the stage, and also to listen to all the very stimulating remarks and speeches that we had before. I'm also particularly humbled by the fact that the past 2 days we heard so much stimulating, engaging discussions, bringing up issues which are difficult, and also the challenges we face today. And thank you, Harsha, for your very lucid and stimulating paper. Ambassador Harsha's paper actually resonates with some of my own experiences, disappointments, and reflections over the past 40 years of work in the development field, and also experiences in the work I've done in different countries. There seems to be a common thread going through the development world in the past 30, 40 years, the ups and downs that we have gone through in different societies. Some of them are the same, others may not be, but the root causes are the same. And also, today we have heard the divides, and I won't repeat it anymore. We saw it in the video, we heard it, and be reminded by every one of the speakers. The world that we are living today, not only is it more divided, it is also in a greater mess than we have had seen. Whether we are talking about the environment, whether we are talking about the gap between the rich and poor, the sufferings we have witnessed in different societies, the wars, all this were brought up and to remind every one of us how serious a situation we are in. I come from a generation in Asia. We were brought up and socialized and politicized in the early post-colonial era, when as young people, we were full of optimism, hope, and aspirations that we will be able to build a better world. We, the young, will be able to shape the future of our nations. But there were also different struggles. We recognize them. But we saw from the 80s, 90s, and up to 2000, there seems to be some progress, some hopeful paths in both the political and economic realms, that there was some hope that we have left behind some of the woes of the pre-World War II days. But I guess, like Ambassador has said, it may not be a better world. We may be just naive, and we might have closed our eyes to the tensions of the tearing at the seams of our society and the rising tide of neocolonialism, and also despotism and the power grabbing that is going on around us. We also witness previous freedom fighters whom we admired and followed, and some of us have laid down our lives for, turning against their own people, killing them with extrajudicial killings and forced disappearances and unlawful incarceration, all in the name of political stability and unity in the nation. And as Harsha has mentioned in his paper, even spiritual leaders had led their flock astray, promoting narrow sectarianism, religious dogmatism, to uphold in their vision of the so-called national, racial, and religious unity. It has become progressively worse, and this is where we are today. So, we all know the problems. We also know that many young people, because of what they see, because of what they have seen their leaders taking them to, they have become disengaged. And they go into their own social media world, fueled by TikTok. And they consider that's where the news comes from, unfortunately. We know the problems, but what would be the solutions? But Harsha said very wisely, since we human beings are responsible for creating these issues, it is now our responsibility to address them. It is time that we all come together. It is time that we bring our understanding, our divisions among ourselves, but don't see them as divisions, but find unity in our differences to come and address the challenges that we see in the world. I can only share some of my own humble insights. Over the past 10 years, and especially since my husband Sompon's disappearance, I had to grapple with my personal suffering, but at the same time learn how to embrace and the sufferings of not only myself, but the hundreds and thousands of victims of enforced disappearances who face similar challenges in their own lives. Before Sombat's disappearance, I consider myself to be an active and somewhat confident development worker, thinking that many of our community's issues and problems can be addressed with the right kinds of development plans and inputs of resources and clever lobbying with the right partners. I prided myself as being pragmatic and rational, but I was never very much a practitioner of any faith or religious traditions. I knew a little bit about Buddhism, partly because I've heard it from Sombat and went to some of the meetings that he participated in. Sambat himself was very much influenced by the teachings of Thich Nhat Hanh, by the teachings of the Dalai Lama, and especially by the teachings of Ajahn Sulak. And because he was guided very much by the practitioners of engaged Buddhism, he embraced it, he took it on very much into his own work, and put it into his own development work. And I'm reminded that he often say, we have, in order to be able to work in the community, to make sense of how their challenges, we first must go deep into ourselves, understand ourselves, reflect on our own spiritual guidance. He often also say, if we are empty inside, how can we ever guide the other people? So slowly, I too have learned to go deep inside, to try and find my own self, my own belonging, and try to find solace in building a strong foundation that I can not only confront with my personal suffering, but to use that as a strength to embrace and address the sufferings of others and try to take actions. As activists, we are sometimes known to only rush to action without much reflection. We think it is important to be doers, solvers of problems, and leaders of those who are poorer and less fortunate than us in our community. There's nothing wrong with doing good. There's nothing wrong with trying to change. But I finally realized through painful experience that activism without spiritual reflection is often shallow and not sustainable, both to the activists and for the people they claim to work with or work for. At the same time, we should also understand, by being contemplative, reflective, it doesn't mean that we are not going to engage in the issues and the challenges we see around us. We need our activism to be less reactive, emotive, and judgmental. We need a new approach to activism, which is guided by reflective mindfulness and wisdom, and to follow the middle path, where we try to forge alliances based on our common values and compassion to strengthen unity between groups with different ideas, different approaches, and even work hand in hand with those we consider to be on the other side. To strike such a balance is not easy, but it's something we need to aim for if we truly want to work to heal ourselves and our communities and our societies. So I'm especially grateful to the wise words of our keynote speaker, who reminded us we are not alone in this. And we have seen this today and in the past few days. We are not alone. We are definitely with a group of reflective, mindful, wise activists and spiritualists, both young and old. And for me, I'm particularly happy to see there are so many young people in our midst in the meetings over the past few days, to see their sometimes quite difficult engagement and trying to make sense of what's happening to their own world. Why are they born in such a time? Why are they thrown these challenges? But they don't back away. And I'm grateful for the young for showing me it's not time for me to give up. It's not time for me to throw in my towel. I need to use the last few years of my life to do whatever I can, however small, working together, hand in hand, with each and every one with you, with INEB members, with your networks, with Junto, with everyone who feel the same as we are in the same boat. We are in the same boat to sink or to swim. And in closing, I have to pay my respect to Ajahn Sulak. He truly is an inspiration. He is a true activist. And he has been, all his life, faced challenges, engaged in those challenges against authoritarianism, always standing up in front, regardless of the dangers to his own life. At the same time, he is also a true Buddhist practitioner and walked the path to show us what reflective engagement is. So once more, Ajahn, happy birthday to you. May you be with us for many more years. We need your wisdom, we need your guidance. For the old, myself, and also for the much younger people in the audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Shiming, for sharing the voice from your heart. And in that voice from your heart, I also hear the voice of somebody. I personally acknowledge the challenges and the suffering you're going through. We continue to support and to wish for the well-being of Sumbat and for you and your family as well. Right? Thank you for the reminder that we need to work together. There's so many strong messages in there, it's impossible for me to summarize, but I think I got that we need to learn to work together, stronger, molded together by our deep spiritual values. This is what I got from the presentation. And again, more questions for you, from you to Shuming later. Thank you, Shuming. And lastly, I'd like to invite Hua, right, to make your presentation. Thank you.
Wow, I feel so honored to be here and such inspired speaker. I feel not lonely as well. I'm not feel lonely right now. And when I turn my phone cover, I see the rainbow and I feel like, wow, I bring a lot of my friends with me today. Greetings, friends who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, intersex, queer, non-binary, and allies in this room. I have seen you, I respect you, and I appreciate your presence here and everywhere. Before I begin, may I invite everyone to close your eyes and stay with your breath. Close your eyes and stay with your breath. Have you ever been called abnormal, not real, mentally ill, weird, weak, have mental disorder? Have you ever been asked if you are a man or a woman? What are you? Have you ever been told no one loves you for who you are? Have your parents been called bad parents? And has someone described you as having bad karma just because you want to be who you are? Please open your eyes. This is the experience of a trans person. This is my experience in my daily life, living my authentic self. Last month, I sat for 1 hour and 30 minutes listening to a monk giving a speech on gender diversity in Buddhism. in which he said words such as abnormal, not natural, and many inappropriate slang to call a trans person. He is the only cisgender heterosexual male in the room, and I am the only transgender woman among the audience. Here, I do not have to tell you how this divided world impacts the life of LGBTIQN+ people. Many speakers have talked about it, yet allow me to share with you a few more first. Violence is a common experience faced by LGBTIQN+ people. Trans women of color in particular have been murdered every year. Last year, 375 trans women and gender diverse people reported being murdered worldwide. This number increased 7% from 2020. The average age of this murder is 30 years old. The youngest is 13 years old. The oldest is 68 years old. Exclusion. Exclusion from social institutions is the life experience of a trans and other LGBTIQN+ people. World Bank Thailand reported that 77% of transgender people were rejected by employer during the application process. Trans people are being excluded from the mainstream as if their identity is being erased from their existence. This exclusion also put them in the poverty circle, just like others whose identity are oppressed. Third, LGBTIQN+ people experience transphobia and homophobia, similar to women experiencing sexism, and that are rooted from patriarchy culture. The most dangerous of these hate is when trans people and LGBT people themselves internalize this hate. They cannot find peace from within when they spend time doubting themselves and being anxious about who they are. That was my experience growing up as a transgender woman who felt I did not deserve, and I had never been good enough. But I can say my world is different from yours. My rainbow world is not as beautiful as you may assume because the rainbow is so colorful. Yet, many LGBTIQN+ are suffering from violence, stigma, and discrimination. I have often thought, how can I be happy in this patriarchy, heteronormative world? Minorities are inevitable to assimilate themselves into the mainstream. But today, I want to address this question to all of you. How can you make your world a part of my world? Here is what I want to suggest. Learn and unlearn. We have grown up in a society that is intentionally and unintentionally taught us that there are only two genders for every being and non-being. Is it true? Some of us have never questioned this belief, norm, and culture. Some of us buy a cooking toy and a baby doll for our daughters, expecting them to grow up good daughters, wives, and mothers. Some of us buy our son a gun and a robot toy, expecting them to be strong and brave. Is this expectation still true? If we have never learned and unlearned this gender stereotype, we will never build a society where all of us can value gender equality and social inclusion. If we still normalize this binary gender, we will only exclude LGBTIQN+ people from our communities. Listen, you probably already know that I want to talk about deep listening. You are right. The deep listening will help us hold a non-judgmental and safe space without asking questions. Deep listening helps liberate those who are being oppressed. Deep listening is not easy for those who always give advice. Deep listening is a skill, and it only works when we believe that those who suffer have a wisdom to be in charge of their own life. The oppressed need someone who can listen to them by the heart, and that is the act of compassion, or metta in Buddhism. Reflect. Let's reflect on our own experience. We have different privileges, yet we lack some privileges because of who we are. We use power over others intentionally and unintentionally, and we share some resources with others, and I want to call this an act of power sharing. We all have the power within that we know and sometimes we do not know. The only way we can be aware of our action that affects other humans, animals, and environment is to reflect on ourselves. Only we can see ourselves clearly, we can begin to change and be aware of the power within we all have. Power within will lead the LGBTIQN+ people to find an inner peace. Only if we are aware of and acts of homophobia and transphobia, we will be more cautious, and we will build a loving and kind society for all of us that include non-LGBT people or cisgender male and female. Practice. Learning, deep listening, and self-reflection are skills that we must practice to build an inclusive, loving, and kind society. We practice breathing for our meditation. We have been doing that for the past few days. We learn to breathe properly. We breathe to stay present while we listen, and we also breathe to reflect on ourselves as we have compassion toward ourselves and others. Social change is a practice. Only you can practice. You can change yourself. Then you can change the society. Please close your eyes. But this time, I want you to have your right hand up. Right hand up. And touch it in your heart. Close your eyes, stay with your breath. Compassion, value, good and enough, kind, capable, strong, confidence, you are love, sense of self-awareness, fighter, and you deserve. Open your eyes. Is your feeling different from the first time? Is it? This is what LGBTIQN+ next to you want to hear. And it's what Kalyana Mitra or allies look like. This is how LGBTIQN+ people can be happy. As I have seen in one of the JTS introduction videos, we all need to be happy first to work towards social change and to liberate other people's suffering. And this is how LGBTIQN+ want to feel. If we really want to rebuild the divided world, we need to collectively build an inclusive world that leaves no one behind regardless of their sex, gender identity, sexual orientation, and gender expression. I would like to pose my last two questions to INEB, Janto Society, Monastery, and in fact, to all of you here. And leave you to think beyond my speech today. Are we holding a space that is inclusive and safe for everyone? For everyone. And what kind of Sangha, what kind of community, what kind of movement are we building collectively? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Hoa. I need to find the words to help to conclude this first part. I feel your presentation has given a very strong message. The message that we need to go beyond labels. I'm not sitting here on a panel with a transgender woman, with a lady from Singapore, or an ambassador, or a monk, or a reverend, right? I think your message that hits me personally, and I'm sure you can agree, is that it's a reminder that we are human beings. Human beings in need of love and compassion, and human beings capable of showing and expressing love and compassion. So this is what I felt as I read and listened to your presentation. Thank you. So this is the first part of our panel program, and we will now move to the question and answer session. And I think during the question and answer session, you can also direct questions to any of the speakers, and even to Ambassador Excellency Harsha as well, because he gave the keynote speech just now. All right. So I now pass the session over to MC. Thank you.
Unfortunately, it's almost time. Sorry. Sorry. We have about 2 minutes left for the Q&A session. So maybe if we can have one question from the audience, please raise your hand. Then our volunteer will run to you with a microphone. Any question? Oh, here. Yes, please.
This is not a question. I just want to say, everyone, there's lots of LGBTQTI plus people in Korea too. They are moving forward, and I'm there with you as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Sorry to conclude this without a long, proper Q&A session. This time, before we let you go, the panelists and keynote speaker, Venerable Pomyun S님, will come up to the stage and present a small gift to everyone on the panelists. Venerable Pomyun S님. And next you will present.
네, INEB 먼저 앞문으로 포장할까요?
스님 사진 찍으시겠어요? 사진 찍으시겠어요? Would you like to take a group photo? Okay, so Ajahn Sulak is coming up to the stage. Ajahn Sulak is the co-founder of INEB.
앞문으로 먼저.
I forget the rest of the introduction of him. Okay, so now panelists, thank you so much, down to the stage, and we invite Ajahn Sulak Sivaraksa for the closing remark. And you go on.
Ajahn Sulak Sivaraksa is a world-famous Siamese intellectual. He's inspired generations of activists, including myself and many of the people sitting here. He's also the recipient of the 2011 Niwanu Peace Prize. It's an honor to be able to introduce him. Thank you, Ajahn.
For the last few days, we Buddhists were discussing, sharing our head and our hearts about the divided world. And today, we share our experiences with other faiths. I think we all together concerned on the divided world. Tomorrow, we have one full day of discussion. I hope we will have something useful for the world. Although the audience this evening is large, yet our message will be carried out to the world thanks to the technology of the mass media. For those who wish to learn something new, particularly for the spiritual dimension, they perhaps can learn something from us. The divided world is many aspects. I would like to mention only one aspect on the gender issue. In Buddhism, the Buddha regards men and women as equal. But unfortunately, we men have been exploiting women all through these years. The Buddha said his teaching would last if there's a male ordained and female ordained bhikkhu and bhikkhuni plus the laymen and laywomen, the four categories. But the female ordination has disappeared from Sri Lanka for over 1,000 years. Luckily, the women in Sri Lanka have learned that Bhikshuni orders still exist in China. So they invited the Chinese Bhikshuni to restart the Bhikshuni ordination in Sri Lanka. And now the Thai have learned. Now the Thai also established Bhikshuni order in Siam. I never use the word Thailand because it's a dirty word. Because we have many non-Thais, particularly the Malay Muslim in the south. Anyhow, the Bhikshuni ordination in my country, this 10 years have started to be over 100. Although the Bhikkhu Sangha don't recognize them, the government don't recognize them, the Bhikkhu Sangha is so weak, spiritually, morally, intellectually, and the Thai government is dictatorship, so who care about them? Unfortunately, in Burma, if you ordain Bhikshuni, you have put in jail already, because the government in Burma also is great dictatorship. Now, regarding the issue of lesbian, homosexual, I was very moved by our friend who's discussed recently. But I would like to share with her and with you all that Bhikshuni Choi in Taiwan was the first to ordain lesbian couple. And through her fighting non-violently, the government of Taiwan have now agreed that the same gender marriage is now legal. And I hope the Bhikkhu Sangha in South Korea could do likewise to change the law for the benefit of those who have been exploited because of the gender issue. And perhaps from South Korea, this idea can be spread to other countries, and even the dictatorial regime may even join. I hope our meeting today, tomorrow, will perhaps have something more concrete, so that the day after, the executive committee will discuss how to put those concrete ideas into action. Although our groups are small, but we are sincere and we are trying to do our best. The last 20 years, we have succeeded in some area, and I hope we will be more successful over the divided world in a very non-violent way. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ajahn. You can stay on the stage. We will take a group photo presently. I'd like to take this opportunity on behalf of the entire INEB family to thank Venerable Panyim Sunim, all of the Jungto Society volunteers, and the Jungto Society itself for hosting the 20th Biennial INEB Conference and providing a space where we can have these discussions and come together as a group. With that, I will close the 2020 INEB Biennial Conference and thank all the viewers online for watching. The broadcast will now end. Thank you.